Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Marlihan Lopez, and I'm Program and Outreach Coordinator at the Simone de Beauvoir Institute at Concordia University. I'm also co-founding member of the Coalition to Defund the Police in Montreal and École Sans Police. I'm excited to welcome you all to this space for this very special event. Thank you for coming out. Special thanks to Fernwood Publishing for choosing SDBI as partner for the Montreal book launch of L. Jones' new book, Abolitionist Intimacies. The book will be available for purchase today thanks to Librairie, Racines, and also note Prisoner Justice Day Collective should be here somewhere selling some of their amazing merch. So they're in the back. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge that we are located on unceded Indigenous lands. The Kanien'kehá:ka Nation is recognized as the custodians of the lands and waters on which we gather today. Tiohtià:ke, Montreal, is historically known as a gathering place for many First Nations. Today, it is home to a diverse population of Indigenous and other peoples. We support community efforts to sustain a relationship with Indigenous peoples based on respect, dignity, trust, cooperation in the process of advancing truth and justice. In recognizing that this space occupies colonized First Nations territories and out of the respect for the rights of Indigenous people, it is our collective responsibility to critically interrogate the colonial histories and present-day implications of this, and to honor, protect, and sustain this land. This event is being live-streamed thanks to Lise Chauvino. I would like to give Lise a minute just to give some instructions to those that are joining us on YouTube.
I've been knowing Marlihan for 5 years and I'm always surprised. So hi everyone, just to let you know that we are broadcasting live now on YouTube. So hi everyone on YouTube. I think you have the live script as well, so if you want to ask questions on Zoom, please, on YouTube, sorry, because I'm also live streaming on Zoom. So please ask your questions in the chat and we'll see for the Q&A times. So enjoy everyone.
So we're going to open up this conversation with some poetry. As you may well know, L. Jones is a spoken word poet, and today we are blessed with the presence of two Montreal-based poets, Deanna Smith and Ricardo Lamour, who will be gifting us with some of their work. Deanna Smith is a Montreal-based poet, performer, and teaching artist. Her work is based on her experiences and perspectives as a fifth-generation Canadian daughter, wife, mother, and bilingual person of African descent. Deanna facilitates creative writing, poetry, and anti-racism workshops for participants age 4+. Her work has been published in Great Black North, Contemporary African Canadian Poetry, and Montreal Sarai magazine. She is the director of the Ile Ife Africana Studies collection and is actively seeking publications of several children's books. So, Fernwood? I invite Deanna to take the stage.
Hello.
I'm really not that much taller at all. Wow, you all are beautiful. I was really looking forward to this because I am a great admirer of Elle Jones as a person and as a writer, and thinking about the situations that lead to all things related to police brutality and incarceration, the narratives that are out there about us are interesting and far-reaching. So I'll start with this. Une belle journée ensoleillée. Disons qu'on était un jeudi, parce que je me rappelle pas exactement, mais je me trouvais dans le stationnement du marché tôt. J'y faisais mes épiceries, pas du tout freiné par les prix, autrement dit, ça allait bien. Soudainement, de nulle part, elle arrive.
Je comprends pourquoi vous vous battez.
Elle m'annonce. Je me retourne. Je m'attendais à voir Ashton Kutcher ou la gang de gaz. Personne. Elle continue.
Je comprends pourquoi vous êtes enragé et je suis d'accord.
Elle avait l'air sérieuse et très sincère. Mais je me demandais pourquoi elle s'insère dans ma journée toute plaisante. Pourquoi, sans préambule ni invitation, je suis devenue témoin de cette manifestation contre tout ce qui pourrait me déranger, mais qui en ce moment ne m'agace aucunement. Elle poursuit.
Nous aussi, on a dû se battre contre l'oppression au Québec. Les femmes. On devrait s'unir, les femmes et les Noirs, pour atteindre nos buts.
Autour de moi, la bienheureuse journée s'effondre. Le ciel, le bleu du ciel coule, l'asphalte sous mes pieds brûle, une marécage d'émotions tourbillonnantes tentent de m'engouffrer. Les mots de Sojourner Truth sonnent dans ma tête. Ain't I a woman? N'ai-je pas corps et cœur et âme comme elle? N'ai-je pas le droit d'être en congé des fois, de ne pas en penser, de ne pas porter le fardeau des siècles sur mes épaules en plissant les yeux dans le parking? Et ça, en me faisant déshumaniser par quelqu'un qui est disparu avant que je puisse même répondre. L'interaction s'est passée comme bien d'autres. Inattendue, non provoquée, me laissant blessée dans son sillage. J'imagine qu'elle se sentait bien, fière même d'avoir soutenu la cause. Je suis rentrée chez moi sans la moitié des choses sur ma liste. Il fallait que je me mette à l'abri de ses bonnes intentions. Merci. So, Montreal traffic being what it is, I rushed here. And Murphy's Law being what it is, my printer didn't work. So. But we will not be moved. This also lets me make this bigger, which is awesome. Dr. Cornell West said that justice is what love looks like in public. So I'm sending love to the boy I met at 4, whose family was falling apart, whose home was the chorus of a hip-hop song, and whose typical response to any new thing was anger. Why not? New things brought trouble, brought removal, brought loss and grief. I am sending love to the woman I met at 54, who was raising her great-grandchildren, successive generations of her family caught up in hopelessness. The last smoked a joint to take the edge off. It was laced with so much angel dust that it took her mind off, and she never came back. This woman's back was bowed from carrying everyone else. How could something not get dropped? I'm sending love to the social worker who first told me that hurt people, and to the reverend who asked, so you wanted to hurt someone and the only person you could reach was yourself, huh? Their quiet wisdom offered jewels that still shine, and their resistance makes space for wholeness. I'm sending love to the teachers I've seen bring food from home, to the kids in their class who never eat in the morning, who barely ate the night before, who just barely eat, hunger raging under the bright lights of a wasteful city. Their desire to fill bellies and hearts fills minds at the same time. I'm sending love to the preschool circle time that offers space to the child who was never heard, barely there, for fear that any sound they make may invite the wrath of an undone parent. Their melodies resonate in the soul and elicit smiles, one wheel on the bus at a time. I'm sending love to the boy in the car who was told to just drive, who only wanted the speakers, who didn't know anything, whose presence made him accountable for everything that the smash and grab destroyed. Bad decisions are easier when good choices are not available. I'm sending love to the sister whose boyfriend said it was just this one time, it was just this one guy, it was just this one favor, not forever, when it was really the beginning of everything. May your body and soul find each other again, the latter having departed in search of peace. I'm sending love to the drivers, minding their business, on their way to do business or pleasure, caught up in the quotas, the stereotypes, the duplicitous nature of power. You don't look like the suspect. You didn't roll the stop. I understand why your breath is shallow even at 10 and 2. I'm sending love to the bench, the cell, the yard, the court, the halfway house, the hallway, the group home, the shelter, the bar, the car, the home, the dorm, the park, the place, into every space where unreasonable reasons may find folks at the gaping mouth of the machine being sucked into the system. May love precede you, and may you find justice there in spite of everything. And so I'll just do one more. Thank you very much, Marlihan, for inviting me to be here. Good to see you, Elle. How is it not deliberate, the inherent nature of incarceration? How is it not just a manifestation of a certain kind of tribalism, an us versus them, the them in this case being us? Why would we trust in a system based on the purported wisdom of folks who never saw us as people, far less equals if they saw us at all? It's not that hard a call to understand why we would not be a fan of packaged law and order, but rather of truth and justice. Come, badged philosopher, explain to me how your epistemology is affirming you earning public money only to protect a portion of the people. And so it goes. Well, if he didn't, then they wouldn't, but they always, so he does. An appearance is everything, but nobody can really see. Get the guns off the street seems a legitimate answer. How many have said that to the gun manufacturer? Ending gang activity seems fair to mention, but how they start is the necessary question. The problem of crime is largely created. Study after study has shown poverty, lack of opportunity, and exposure to violence perpetuated and exacerbated by municipal, provincial, and federal inaction and silence give us what we have today. What we want to know is, when will the age of the cage end? And when will the beginning matter? Shatter the family, the shape and soul of the community, then shake heads and hands with the devil about proposing urban renewal. It's straight out of a comic book villain's grand monologue, except the pages contain our futures, and the writers never take credit for their master plan. And again, right wings take flight against blighted homes and neighborhoods, but never responsibility for the plans that blighted them. And then more presence is required when the wood-fired rustic pizzerias arrive on the block and block the former residents, the them. But this is not evidence for them. This is progress. See definition of gentry, us. We don't have to guess where it will go. We just have to stop it from happening. Everyone in their own way, even the poets, one word at a time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deanna. Ricardo Lamour is an artist, columnist, and community activist. He has also released albums, acted in films, and appeared in documentaries. His writing often addresses racial justice and anti-Black racism. His work was published in Pivot, Ricochet, La Presse, Nouveau Projet. Lamour also actively mentors the collective Bout du Monde, which consists of 5 Black youth that occupy cultural, physical, and political spaces in order to transform them. Bout du Monde was founded 7 years ago with the goal of creating environments that nurture the genius of Black youth. They recently collaborated with the Canadian Museum of Human Rights for the revision of its Black content. Lamour provided analysis and advice on anti-Black racism to actors in the philanthropic, community, and political ecosystems, took part in key efforts to address the censorship of Black voices in the arts in Quebec, and has contributed to the Montreal adopting of a motion recognizing the United Nations resolution for the International Decade for People of African Descent. The CRTC recently ruled in his favor regarding the usage of the N-word by the French services of the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. And although CRC is appealing the decision, they have issued an apology to Ricardo Lamour. So let's welcome Ricardo.
So, is the dog's first public performance? No. I want to start by thanking Elle, because this summer Elle saved my life. And right after the decision of the CRTC that ruled in my favor, I faced major backlash in Quebec, while many so-called organizations that were supposed to maybe speak some truth to power decided to remain silent, and some even saying to me, well, you're kind of socially dead, so we can't really say something. When the CBC, SRC will appeal, maybe we'll then mobilize. So I had to go get support in Halifax, from Al Jones, from Desmond Cole, while organizations in Montreal remain quiet. I think that's brutal, I think that's crazy, and I think we need to find ways to stand in solidarity somehow, just checking in on people, knowing if they're still breathing. I remember at some time, maybe it was around 2015, 2014, you'll correct me, Elle, but you were supporting an incarcerated brother, Aidan Cromwell. You asked for support letters for this brother, incarcerated for murder. And this is what, at the time, I wrote. Spirits up. Keep your spirits up. How shall we help you keep your spirits up? You are us, we are you. So spirits up. Spirits up, Mr. Cromwell, keep your spirits up. Aidan, Queen Elle told me about you, Aidan. Been also reading about you. Kid with mixed heritage, victim vilified violently, put in a cage. Spirits up, breathe, keep your spirits up. From Montreal, Quebec, king in dark office behind desk, reflecting and writing to another king, keep your spirits up. Cause only 20 years old may the truth unfold and take the justice system by storm to destroy what is thought to be the norm. You never meant to kill, may the universe heal the wounds of the soul that feels troubled by a world that makes him feel too old Nurture your soul. Nurture your soul to articulate your perception, because others may join you due to the way that the system is molded. Your spirit can travel beyond the prison walls, beyond the system's wrongs. You're being fulfilled and strong. It does appear like we should appeal for the truth to appear. We keep you in thoughts and spirit. Promise to keep paying hope a visit, and then you'll see. And when you'll see hope choke, tell it has no right to be diminishing, because we need him to occupy space in the prison system, where too many kings are treated as criminals instead of victims. This is a piece I wrote today. At first I thought it was some piece of paper, some piece of media article. As I came closer, I realized it was a crushed bird mashed up with the cement. Lots of crushed birds. At first I thought it wasn't about my story. Then I realized that all the elements of the story are mine. He was the same age as me. He just had more food in his fridge. His sister showed us his intimacy, showed us the place that the authorities invaded. He wanted to live. For this one, I want you to stop filming. Thank you.
Now I'd like to invite Sheri Pranteau and Elle Joins to join us and take a seat. Sheri Pranteau is an Indigenous woman born in Winnipeg, Manitoba. Her family of origin is from the Pine Creek Band in Manitoba. She is a mother to her 10-year-old son, who is her pride and joy, her reason for continuing to move forward in her life. Sheri is also serving a life sentence. With 15 plus years in the penitentiary and now going on 13 years on parole. Sheri is a frontline worker for the Indigenous homeless and was the first person hired to work for the Indigenous Support Workers Project back when it first started up. Once COVID came along, she had to take a step back, and from there she chose a different path. Sheri is currently the advocacy liaison for the BTC national team of the Canadian Association of Elizabeth Fry Societies. She's also employed with Resilience Montréal part-time, which is a day shelter for the homeless. She is a board member to the Native Friendship Center of Montreal, president to the Center for Justice Exchange Group project, and is busy with creating a better support type of group for women coming out of prison. Thank you, Sheri, for accepting this invitation. Now I'd like to present Elle. Elle Joins is a poet, journalist, professor, and activist living in Halifax, Nova Scotia. She teaches at Mount Saint Vincent University, where she was named the 15th Nancy's Share in Women's Studies in 2017. She was Halifax Poet Laureate from 2013 to 2015. She is the author of Live from the Afrikan Resistance, a collection of poems about resisting white colonialism. Her work focuses on social justice issues such as feminism, prison abolition, anti-racism, and decolonization. Since 2016, she has co-hosted a radio show called Black Power Hour on CKDU-FM, where listeners from Pitt Prison call in to rap and read their poetry, providing a voice to people who rarely get a wide audience. Elle is the author of Abolitionist Intimacies. I'm going to take a seat too. Yeah, it is, okay. So, in the context of prison industrial complex and what Joan calls carceral intimacies enacted through coercive power and abuse, L. Jones offers the counter-practice of abolitionist intimacies, characterized by love, care, healing, forgiveness, insurgent acts within and outside the prison walls. Throughout this book, the author and poet generously articulates what it means to engage in ideas of intimacies for articulating relationship to state violence at different carceral sites, from prisons to borders to hospitals to social work. She reminds us that abolition is a global project that includes the fight against militarization, homelessness, poverty, and gender-based violence. Elle takes the project of abolition away from institutions and academia and back to grassroots organizing by centering the voices of victims of state violence. She reminds us that prisoners and victims are not separate people and that prison abolition is indeed a feminist issue. Elle turns to Living Archive, recovering what is lost, erased, and buried by refusing to forget those we have lost to state violence, to prisons, to banishment. She argues that abolitionist practice can't be limited to a theoretical act, but must be supported by actions towards our collective liberation. Abolitionist Intimacies responds to the urgent need for abolitionist literature centered on the Canadian prison as a Black feminist engaged in work and abolition work in so-called Canada, this book recognizes the value of abolition work in spaces beyond academia, where abolition organizing happens every day, particularly those created and nurtured by the labor of Black women. This type of abolition work lives in our communities every day and manifests through our refusal to forget, to banish, or to dehumanize those confined to prison walls. So I'm going to give you some space to share some part of your book. Oh, you have your mic?
All right, good afternoon, peace everybody. Thank you for coming out. Say peace back to me. I really want to thank Deanna and Ricardo for that absolutely beautiful opening, and there's so much care that was taken into choosing pieces to fit today, so thank you both. What an honor, it was beautiful. This poem comes from the Black and Indigenous lifers who asked me to write a poem about their experiences of juries. 1 white, 2 white, 3 white jurors, 4 white, 5 white, 6 white jurors, 10 white, 11 white, 12 white jurors, it's an all-white jury again. Gerald Stanley walked out of the courtroom a free man. Shots fired through the window of an SUV, he said he was just defending his land, a hang fire. He said, just a twitch of his hand. The life of Colton Bushy, worth less than the alleged theft of an ATV. What was he doing was all they debated on TV. Shots to the head while he was lying there asleep, and so the Indigenous youth was the only one found guilty. And there were comments that he deserved it in a secret Facebook group for an RCMP and a group of Saskatchewan farmers. Of course, they all agreed, and the publishing companies offered him exclusive book deal and the jury pool. The jury pool. It didn't look like me. And there are hundreds of thousands of dollars donated to his GoFundMe. Oh, Canada, where Indigenous lives still fetch a bounty for 1 little, 2 little, 3 little. Raymond Cormier walked into court and walked out. Killing an Indigenous girl equals reasonable doubt. The only person on trial was Tina Fontaine. The Globe and Mail headline said there were drugs and booze in her veins. The cops had her to stop and they waved her on through. Just like police asked Colton Bushy's mother if she was drunk when they delivered the news. And the jury pool. The jury pool. It didn't look like you. And while Stanley and Cormier are free as a bird, Adam Capet was held 4 years in solitary until the time blurred. By the time the ombudsman got to him, he was slurring his words. They said they forgot him or what even occurred. They say that's an accident, but haven't you heard? In federal prisons, Indigenous women make up more than 1/3. And over half of the juvenile facilities and the majority in care who are taken from their families and just take a walk through maximum security or take a look around remand and who can't afford the surety. And they locked Renee Akabi away into obscurity, but then they tell me white is the equivalent of purity. And since we can't be innocent, we should bow to their authority. We can't win. We can't win. Not when session is in. Not with histories upon histories of savages and sin. If you'll all rise for the jury, the court will begin selecting 1 white, 2 white, a white jury. You can dress as sexy Pocahontas if you want for Halloween. And Brad Barton was acquitted of murder in the 1st degree, while Cindy Gladou's vagina was displayed in court for all to see. John Wayne is still an icon of the silver screen. Birth of a Nation's been a blockbuster since 1915, and there's gated communities where black folk are never seen. When they stop us on the street, they say, that's just routine, and my friend walked into court under a portrait of the Queen. Well, I tried to buy him suits while the cops showed up in jeans. We worried he'd look guilty if he wasn't cut so clean. They couldn't show any evidence to even place him at the scene. When it came time to read the verdict, you all know what I mean, thanks to 1 white, 2 white, all white jury. And the media? Well, they said from his face, they just knew he couldn't feel, and now the system tells him that perhaps he can appeal. But on the appeals court, there's 1 white, 2 white, 3 white judges. We can't win. We can't win. Not once they see a black skin. And once the door locks, no one can see what happens within. They claim you can try a habeas in court, but then the institution spins. And who'll believe a criminal and what they have to say? And now my friend's been there on lockdown for 23 hours a day. And the phone calls only come when your family can pay. When they have you down in SEG, the phone doesn't come around at all. My other friend broke his leg, and for weeks he had to crawl. And a third's been on a hunger strike 3 weeks behind those walls. They spent money on more weapons, getting the guards some pepper balls. We claw our way into the halls of justice, but our voice is just too small. We can get 1 or 2 more judges, but they still write the laws. A guy tried to slit his throat and they just wrapped him up with gauze. They released a woman to a bus stop in the winter and said, that's just protocol. Just like Neil Stoneshine and those prairie starlight tours. And there's another woman who set herself on fire. But when you die in a prison in my province, no one has to inquire. No charges pressed for guards who watch Ashley Smith expire. But when prisoners hit the standards, then they call the liars. Andrew Loku, shot by the police in 21 seconds. Freddie Villanueva executed because police said they felt threatened. Sammy Yatim, shot on a streetcar when he'd already dropped his weapon. But if a cop guns down a black man, he never has to reckon. We can't win. We can't win. The not guilty verdict is in. Because it's 1 white, 2 white, 3 white jurors. 4 white, 5 white, 6 white jurors. 10 white, 11 white, 12 white jurors. It's an all-white jury again. Like Russian time? No. Okay. I'm going to one more poem, and I'm going to read you a bit of my prose, and then we'll end with a poem, and then we'll talk. Okay. This is another poem from the men, actually. Oh, sorry, I also have to give you the notes. SHU is the special handling unit. It's actually just at St. Anne's de Plaine. It's the Supermax. Donald Marshall is a famous wrongful conviction case in Nova Scotia of a Mi'kmaq man who was wrongfully convicted for killing a black man, Joe Seeley, and served 11 years. Glenn Assoon is another wrongful conviction case in Nova Scotia as well. I know a man who stabbed a man inside and got sent off to the SHU. But he says when somebody comes after you, then what else do you do? I don't believe that he's a monster. But that's what the system says. And now he's doing double life and might not see the light of day. And when you're 15 and your family teaches you to sell crack, Well, is there any coming back? So you grow to manhood in the max. So we define entire lives by a person's worst acts, so we just list their various crimes and believe we have the facts. So here's another story of another lost defendant. He's 20 years old and he's 8 years into his sentence. Brought over to the prison from juvenile detention. Sometimes children in this country just don't deserve a mention until they commit a crime, and then suddenly we pay attention. There are people in society we label as disposable. When you're already doing time, shouldn't be the first time you're diagnosable, and so we put them in a prison where at least they are controllable. And I suppose it isn't notable. And no one gets emotional. Unless we find out that they're innocent, then maybe humanity's negotiable. But for the rest, you did the crime. So your humanity's ignored. And men are in so long they don't know how to use a door. And men are in so long they've never heard of Internet Explorer. That's what happens when you're black, when you're indigenous or poor, when you're considered to be criminal before you're even born. I get an incoherent call at 3 o'clock in the morning. The same guy who called me crying to report he was assaulted, he says he's locked up in his room, surrounded by guns and knives. If they come to take him back, it's either his or their lives. He said ever since he left the prison, he's been numbing with a high, but people say to close his mouth because it doesn't happen to real guys. I suppose it's ironic. He's from the same reserve as Donald Marshall. So it seems to me that justice there was only ever partial. When we look back at that case and say those 11 years were awful, but for everybody else the same suffering is lawful. I've heard so many tragic stories I could almost tick off a box, but still we call it justice once the prison doors are locked. We believe that punishment comes to the people who deserve it, but punishment mostly comes to the people who can't swerve it, can't avoid it, can't employ it, can't voice it, can't afford it, and then once you go to prison, whatever happens, can't report it. So we talk about wrongful. But what are the rightful convictions? Sure, there's Paul Bernardo, Clifford Olson, Robert Picton. But what about the man on his 50th charge of shoplifting, when it's obvious to everyone the problem is addiction, and the Truth and Reconciliation Commission can only be a fiction as long as Indigenous people are still filling up the prisons? I have a hard time seeing justice as a preserve without a well, but then we bring its children a smudge kit in their cell. Don't we wonder what will happen when there's foster kids living in hotels or black children in the principal's office 5 minutes past the bell because they've never learned to read and they fell between the gaps? We start with zero tolerance by the time they're done taking naps. Is it justice when some people start the race ahead by laps? In a country where we can't even guarantee clean water from the taps, and there's indigenous land under every prison on the map. And as you move up from minimum to medium to max, it's a funny thing in Canada how the skin just gets more black. And that lack of access to parole that is kind of like a tax, a couple years of extra sentence they tack onto our backs, and there's those weapons laws they pass that they claim are for the gangs, while there's white supremacists in prisons with KKK upon their hands, and there's guards who give them daps. And the police can gun down teenagers and never hit the stand. I won't even get into asking why we never charge the banks, but should anyone be sent to where they have to carry shanks? I watched police roll into Ferguson with snipers riding tanks. I don't believe you have to not have done it for justice to be miscarried. When I've known men so long in prison that their babies now are married. Hell, I've known men so long in prison they first meet their son out on the range, and I don't know that it is justice if we decide you can never change. And I don't know that it is justice when there's men inside a cage, and I don't know that it is justice if the scales will never budge, and men in prison with so much legal knowledge, they could be a judge. And maybe they could have gone in that direction if they only got a nudge. And it's true. I have known men who did a killing for a grudge. But does 3 seconds of your life make you only human sludge? And let's not talk about the corporations, the profit of it all, like the predatory phone companies gouging prisoners for a call, women going broke when a man's convicted eviction's not her fault. I could talk about the scammers and how many hits of falls. Families turned away after driving up for hours because I don't know that it is justice when it's so easy to abuse powers. I could talk to you for days. It would all be the same ruin, and I know men who did their time down in prison with us soon, but they'll never be set free to share their voices in these rooms. And I know lawyers, guards, or judges who do their best to change the tune. But in a society that's broken, that's like reaching for the moon. And I confess, I once believed that every person could be saved. And it took a couple of years, and it's true that I got played, and I had to face that there's some people who seem to want to dig a grave. But I still don't believe that they deserve solitary just because they misbehaved, and I still believe we can do better, and we have to find a way. And I'd still rather know I tried, even if it means I failed, because it never will be justice, while our solution still is jail. So from the people doing time in Kent, down to people in Renouse, from the people in the county, up to people in the shoe, if that was your life story, what do you think you'd do? Sections, and then we'll do one more poem, and then I'll shut up. So this is from a section called Interludes, and this one is called Bus Stops. Every so often when I'm waiting for the bus, a woman will come up to me smiling, and I look at her, and it's a woman I wrote with in the women's prison, Nova Institution. We always hug, laughing and beaming at each other. The human contact and joy we were forbidden when we sat together at those glass tables, when even talking too much about your lives at all, or any affection, was cause for suspicion. One time I was waiting in the visiting area for the woman to come down, and I got up and looked through the books and games and magazines on the shelves for visiting families, and I found a sheet of paper. A mother had made a list with her children of what she would do when she got out. Order pizza, it said. Talk for as long as I want, with no one listening. One of the entries said, walk, not in a circle. One of the women goes into a long meditation once on the phrase on the outs, about how it can mean you're angry with someone, but then it also means what you hope for. I'll see you on the outs. On a hot summer day, I'm running up and down Citadel Hill, focused inside myself. There's construction on the road around the hill, and a woman is there holding a sign. After a few repeats, when I get to the top, she comes over to me and asks me if I used to come to Nova. We chat for a minute at the top of the hill. A metaphor come to life. She has climbed this far. She made it up. This section's called Pen Boxes. By the way, when I say my friend walked into court under a portrait of the Queen, and that poem, first poem I did, that's the story of Randy Riley, which runs through this book, which is a wrongful conviction of an African Nova Scotian man. So this is just one of the small sections on Randy. It's called Pen Boxes. Randy's pen boxes are a total nightmare. He has lots of people who love him, but we can't get it together. I mean that literally and metaphorically. People get sick. I'm in and out of town. We're just not organized. He has to keep putting in extensions. You're only allowed the 5 boxes of all your clothes, electronics, kitchen stuff, workout gear, books, music, and then nothing for the rest of your time. If you're doing life, you're supposed to wear the same stuff at the end of your sentence that you got going in, no matter how much styles change, no matter how much your body changes, no matter how worn out. When we finally get the boxes together though, everyone has gone all in. You're allowed 2 pairs of sneakers. He has 5. Dozens of t-shirts, over a dozen jeans, all brand new. Love will always show itself, no matter how much they try to stomp it out. Of course, he can't have all of it. You have to stick to the list. But this excess is a form of resistance too. And I'll read one last from this section. It's called Equality. When I was allowed to go into the Max unit to write with the women, we would meet in a room used for school, programs, the library, and activities. One day I'm meeting with the women one-on-one, and we don't have enough paper. We start writing on the whiteboard in the room instead. The woman I'm writing with tells me about how she was trafficked and held in a motel room for weeks,
kept naked and drugged. She finally escaped. She described running through the lobby of the motel, barely knowing where she was. The cops gave her a few $1,000s and put her on a plane back home. That was it. She told me she spent the money on drugs, and when she ran out, she robbed a pharmacy. She got 5 years, more than the men who kidnapped, raped, and abused her ever served. On the board in the room, she writes about running and about healing and hope. I tried to memorize the poem, to hold on to it before it was erased, but it's gone from me, like a shape moving indistinctly behind a heavy door. The last thing I'll read from here is, this is actually my favorite essay in the book. I'm going to read you a little excerpt. So this is from an essay called We Gon' Be Alright. And it was written at a time when I couldn't find a job and I was in a lot of despair. And it's an essay kind of talking myself back to life. People talk about self-care, but what can that mean when the people who care most deeply for you and the ones who you love in return are the people to whom you owe your labor? It isn't a burden to do this work. Not when the trust and solidarity and profound love you build by your commitment to each other are the reward. But still, when the calls from segregation come in the evenings, it means there's no going to movies or out to dinner or even watching a whole show on Netflix. And that's the work that won't get a tenured job. That's the work that puts pain in your body and takes years off your life. But when M calls me and tells me I sound down, and I tell him I don't know if I'll have a job next year, he says, I get a welfare check every month. Let me send you that. Someone like you should never have to ask for help. Nobody else. Not the heads of departments, not the colleagues and friends. Nobody else has offered everything they have like that. This is why we answer the phone evening after evening. Desmond says to me, we may not be religious, but what we do is like a religious act. We imagine and work toward a better world, but the heaven we are trying to make is here on earth. And while we are living here and struggling, we are in hell. But heaven and hell are the same place for us. So every day, we wake up in hell, and we have to do our best to enter heaven. We have to sacrifice for that, and we have to pay the price for that. We don't hold anything back in this room. Not savings, not our tongues that get us labeled troublemakers, not even our tears, although we push them back and get up the next morning and keep fighting on. Because someone has to buy the groceries, put the clothes in the prison boxes, pay the gas for visits. Somebody has to hold the hands in court and call the lawyer and visit the jail and take the call from the suicide cell. And when you stand in that love and solidarity and rage, you can't expect to have the bills paid. You can't expect to have the comfort of the world too. You have to make your choices. Sometimes I lie in bed and I think about the books I should have written, the papers I could have published, the poems and articles and chapters I didn't give my time to. And everyone tells me I wouldn't be lying here if I had just written those things. But then I ask myself, which life would I exchange for that book? Whose life was worth less than a chapter? And I know I wouldn't choose differently, just as nobody would choose differently. Not if you knew the life that was in front of you, that you had the power to sustain and hold. We are the living archive, I remind myself. And there is no tenured position, no degree, no qualification that can give me what is worth more than one life. It is not that I save them. It is that their trust and care sustains and nurtures me. That every day when I despair, when I don't know how I can pick up and rebuild again, when I don't know how I can fight these fights without sickening and dying from it, it is their voices that remind me, over and over, who I am and why I do this work. And these are my instructions to the people around me. If I die before you, make sure those who loved me and whom I loved are the people at my funeral. Scatter my ashes outside the prisons of this province so I can haunt them forever. Don't use my name for whack shit, and don't let the institutions that wouldn't love me in life take hold of me in death. If I die violently, remember that I hated prisons, and honor me. I'm not imagining my death. These are my expressions of my commitment to the living, to my life and the life of others, to the sacrifice that isn't a sacrifice, but a sacrament, a blessing. And I'll read one last poem. This is the last poem. Good Night Moon. This is my version. This is called Good Night June. In a provincial jail is a little room with a toilet and a sink and a smell of mildew and a slit of a window with a sliver of the moon and a radio on a shelf playing a tune and a metal cot and a metal slot and a night that's either too cold or too hot and an officer in the spot by the stairs and 3 more guards sitting on chairs and the shadow of the laws that put people in there and the eye of the camera watching you sitting and a photocopied picture of your mother and children and a heart with a hole for the loved ones you're missing and restless dreams where you wake up shivering and a door with a lock and a window with bars and a corner of the sky showing just 1 star and a comb and a brush and a toilet that won't flush and a guard on his rounds ordering hush. So good night moon, like a little tune. Good night window, barely showing the moon. Good night laws that aren't changing soon. Good night radio, good night news. Good night cot, good night slot. Good night down in solitary where the world forgot. Good night sheets, tied up in a knot. Good night bad dreams and regretful thoughts. Good night clanging doors and the camera shot. Good night locks, good night clocks. Good night countdown to the day you get out of the box. Good night mildew, good night mold. Good night lights on all night down in the hole. Good night heart with its little hole. Good night heat, good night cold. Good night foam mattress, good night comb. Good night to the crumpled picture of home. Good night dripping sink and toilet that won't flush. And good night to the officers ordering hush. Good night patrol, good night stare. Good night outside, good night air. Good night love, good night care. Good night prisoners everywhere. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Elle. My first question is around methodology and practice. Elle, could you please speak on abolitionist intimacy as your methodology and practice? And Sheri, could you share with us how abolitionist practice translates in your daily work? Both of your work highlights the importance of recognizing other spaces beyond the written text where abolitionist organizing is happening today.
Hi. Well, I'm so lost. Please forgive me. How it works, okay, well, what I do is I kind of have I wear a lot of hats at present. A lot of the work that I do is I work with the First Nations Indigenous homeless community in and around Montreal, more or less in the downtown core, Milton Park, Place des Arts. Right now I'm working part-time with Resilience Montreal, which is another Indigenous day/wet shelter for the homeless. And it's kind of like it's more or less a heartbreaking job. Seeing our people out there struggling, it's like I crave communication with them. I crave to have conversations with these people to see what brought them there. How they ended up in the predicament where the addiction is way bigger than them, to the point where, they wake up and if they don't have it, they go into medical seizures, medical accidents, and it's really, really, really tragic because a lot of our people out there, come from, tight-knit families, communities with, better job applications and resumes than, the rest of us. Like, they do really good work, and like it's really sad just to see that they're out there and they're struggling. And I have a lot of people, when I walk up to them just to see if they're okay, if they need anything. Like, I don't really have much myself, but I'll offer what I have, sit with coffee. I'll usually take fried bannock from home, and I'll go and I'll just sit with people, and I'll talk, and I'll see what has got them out there. Because the reality is that if you look from like the 70s, all the documentaries that you have on the Indigenous homeless and homeless of the Indian communities and stuff like that, it's just tenfold more serious today. There's been no changes. The shelters are a great resource, but I feel that like it's a temporary Band-Aid. It's like, okay, so we'll just put a temporary Band-Aid. We'll give you a place to come during the day. We'll, feed you food. We'll do our best to like help you out like that. But it's at the end of the workday, that's it. It's done. The resources are closed. And where I come from, there was this project that was made in Montreal. It's for the Indigenous Support Workers Project, which is basically they wanted to be like Indigenous for the Indigenous, because the cry out there from organizations, what I heard is that the white people that were doing the work were constantly getting told to F off, that the workers were constantly changing, which basically broke down trust. So when I went out there, I was actually making my way to my interview, and I was going through downtown Montreal, and people were coming out of their little groups of drinking cohorts and stuff, and they're like, "Oh, you're one of us, come." And they're like, "What are you doing down here? Do you want a beer? Do you want food?" They're offering me everything they had. And then it was like, I was like, okay, this is, I guess, what the people were talking about, it's like, I guess, to see one of your own, to actually take interest and, not walk by you like you don't exist, like you're just, a piece of trash there, like you're just a part of the thing that, doesn't need to be paid attention to. And that's more or less what my people feel. Our people feel. It's like, I have grown men that look at me in utter shock, where they're just like, well, and they cry, and they're like, well, why are you talking to me? Why are you acknowledging me? And I was like, well, I see you. I was like, I see you like I see myself. And I was like, I lived my life forgotten. I was basically, I went to jail at a very, very young age. I went from juvenile to about, when I was 14 to I was about 16. And that was just due to poverty, alcoholism, abuse, foster homes, day schools, stuff like that. It was just, I was bounced around in foster homes, group homes, to girls' lockups, to day schools where, they were run by the nuns. And it was not great. And I went from there, and then finally, when I was 16, they had enough of me, because I was very anti-authority. I was always fighting. I didn't understand. I didn't like to be locked up. I didn't like to be manhandled and told what to do. So at 16, they raised me to adult prison. And then when I turned 17, they gave me my first federal sentence, and they sent me away to the pen, which was across. They sent me to. Well, actually, I went on a milk run. I'm from Winnipeg. What the milk run is that what they used to do back in the day for transfers, they put all of you on a bus and transfer you prison to prison, and you stop in one prison, you drop off a lot of men, and I was actually the only girl on the bus, and I was really, really young, so everybody was really interested in me, asking me all kinds of questions of what I was doing there on this big federal con bus, like shackled and handcuffed with all these big, burly men and scary people, and they're all like, well, what are you doing here? And they're like, who are you? And I was just like, well, nobody, I'm just so Sheri. And it's, it's a crazy life. So going through there, going through all the prison, and I eventually got out when I was 19 years old, back to Winnipeg, and it was really interesting because when I got out, they just let me go back home. They let me go back to my house. I had to do a parole officer visit every so often, and on my first visit, like, I was already gone. Like, I went back into the north end of Winnipeg. I don't know if anybody knows anything about the north end of Winnipeg, but it's just really, really rough. It's not a great place to be, and I've been back recently due to funerals and tragedies within my own family, and it's even worse ever since the pandemic came and the types of stuff that they're mixing the drugs with. I've actually suffered like seven deaths in my family in the past 26 months, and I've gone to a few funerals, and some I had to miss because it's really expensive to travel across the country and have flights and train tickets and stuff. So it's been a real struggle, and I'm kind of losing my thought again, but but it's I don't know, it's the work, the being, like, going into prison for, I did like 17 plus years, and plus another 2.5 years in the halfway house before I was actually granted full parole. And it was all really, really, really a struggle. Like, the system, first of all, I'm gonna say that, like, I never got no rehabilitation in the system. It's basically what I got was, I had to really take a look at myself, and I had to, like, come and figure out myself, like, within myself. There was you have, like, if I can give you a little story about my experience where authorities and doctors and academia comes in, because I've always had, like, not a hate, I just always had, like, a disbelief in them, because when you go inside, they set you up to do a correctional plan, they evaluate you, sit you with psychologists, psychiatrists, and parole officers, and dialectical behavior counselors, all these kinds of stuff, and they were asking me questions, and a lot of my history comes right from residential schools. My grandparents, actually survived all of this stuff. My siblings were in residential schools and suffered horrible abuses and a lot of murders. My mom was one of the murdered and missing Indigenous women from when I was a baby, so I never ever got to meet her or know her, unfortunately. And so the doctors asked me all kinds of questions, and I'm just giving, my story. It started, and at the end of it, about an hour, maybe 45 minutes into it, and she was like, she kind of closed her book, and she's like, I don't believe you. And I was like, what? I was like, what do you mean you don't believe me? She's like, she's like, you're lying to me. She's like, this is too much tragedy for somebody so young. And I was just only 17. I just got my federal sentence at this time when this happened, and I was already angry. I was already pissed off, and I ended up flipping a table, and ended up, she ended up running out, and I ended up getting jumped. It was just like, but it was crazy, because, they send these people in to come and talk to you, and that was the response that I was met with. And that kind of led me into how I walked through the rest of the system. I was like, I had no belief in the psychiatrists, psychologists, because they're all basically paid by CSC, and they're there to evaluate you, but they're there to evaluate you for corrections, not for you, not for what's better for you, not to help you. They're there to help corrections cause, to put on paper, what they're paid to put there for, and what they're there to evaluate you for. So I've always been a big believer of that. Like, throughout the system, the part that is most damaging to most lives is that paperwork. People that evaluate you, or if they see you, like me, I came from a gang world. My crimes were all based with gangs and Aboriginal gangs and stuff like that. So I still walk with this label in my paperwork. I have a notorious stamp across my file that I'm working very furiously to remove, because, like, I'm anything but notorious, I'm scared when I go onto a third floor and I look over a window and, like, I'm shaking like a leaf, like, that's anything but notorious and nasty. But yeah, it's just like, Yeah, I'm just going off, I don't even know.
Actually, like explaining the whole book.
Oh, really? So yeah, like that, my work comes in, and what I do today, and my fight to get out is basically because a lot of my sisters and even my brothers have died in the prisons. You know, nobody talks about, you know, the people that really die in there. Like I had sisters that, tied their bars shut, and even though they tied their bars shut to like hang themselves and do themselves in, you have like what we call a death rattle. And it's like, you know, when they're hanging, oh, it's so sad, like, I'm sorry. It's not easy to listen to people die, you know, when you're in the next cell, and it's not a closed door, it's open bars. So you listen to these things, and you listen to people suffering and slashing and dying and getting jumped and sprayed. It's ridiculous, you know, it's hard. And, you know, there's many times where I tried to take my own life. My body is full of scars and slashes, and what I guess helped me, what stopped me in my tracks, and I kind of told this story yesterday as well, was that an elder, you know, I wasn't really familiar with my culture at this time. I was a kid, I had a really bad mentality, I had a hate on for guards, I wasn't really interested in anybody coming to help me because I didn't want to talk to anybody. And there was like, I was sitting in my cell, my arms were all cut open, there's blood everywhere, and this elder walked by my cell, and she stopped in front of me, like, not no hi, no, oh my God, are you okay? None of that. She was like, looked around, and she was like, oh, you better clean that up. And I was like, well, why? And I was like, why would I do that? And I was like, I'm fine the way I am. She's like, because, you know, the spirits and, you know, the people on the other side, they might take that as an offering and they'll come to collect. And I was just like, I never got off my ass so quick, and I never cleaned up my own mess so quick in my life. And that was actually the last time that I ever cut myself, that I ever tried to commit suicide or slash or take it out in anger anymore. And so it was just that, and that's what intrigued me to know more, to ask questions, to really connect with who I was as an Indigenous person. And I find it really sad that it took me to go to prison, you know, to have that opportunity and that chance to learn about who I was as an Indigenous person, and to learn what my way of life was supposed to be and how our people were. And because if you think about it, like before Columbus and all these people came, like we as a people, we didn't have any prisons, you know, we didn't have poverty, we had each other, everybody had their role, every single person was meaningful in the tribe, everybody had their role, everybody had their place, everybody took care of each other. And you know, and then it was when the settlers came, and you know, then they took advantage, and everybody knows like the story that goes on from there, and the poison of alcohol and stuff like that. And I believe in my heart of hearts that we were never supposed to have alcohol in our systems, because it brings out the worst. You know, a lot of our people are dying. My father died, you know, my father died 6 months after my mother was murdered, and her body was found and stuff like that. He was a diabetic, dependent on type 2, he was dependent on insulin shots, and after my mother got murdered, he basically gave up on life. He just drank really, really, really hard. He wasn't taking his insulin shots, and when he did, I guess, try to come out of his stupor and take care of himself, he had a really bad reaction to his insulin, and I guess he passed out on the street, and the cops picked him up, and they put him in a cell thinking that he was just drunk, which I guess he was, but that wasn't what his condition was. He was in a diabetic coma, and that's where he died. He died in a jail cell, no medical attention. They didn't take care of him, and a lot of my family today, from my father's side, you know, are on my case about that. And they're like, well, you could look into it. You know, we couldn't really do too much about it, but you being the daughter, like, you could go and further investigate how he died and why he died. And, it's a lot, because like I said, I went to jail very young. I never had the chance to grow up with my siblings or my family and stuff like that. I kind of grew up in the system alone, and which is one of the reasons why today I do the work that I do. I'll sit with anybody that's on the street to make sure, that you're not alone, that, I do see you and I do acknowledge you, and people look at me weird when they see me, Like sometimes I'll have like this little mirror when I used to walk and people are passed out, and I'd go and I just like be over them with a little mirror in front of their face just to make sure they're breathing. And people are like, oh, what are you doing? And I was like, well, that's a human. I was like, just like I'm a human. It's like you seem concerned about me because maybe it's like I'm not the one laying on the street. Like I'm supposed to walk over this person and not care. That's not me. Like I don't know. It's hard when you come out. When I came out from all of that, I just wanted to live. Like the only thing I ever wanted when I was in jail was basically to be happy and to have a kid. I was like, you know what? That's all I really, really, really dreamed about. And I wanted my freedom, of course. And I had to come over a lot of battles just to get there. And like, the system was against me. Nobody was in favor of me. And I had to, just bite down, swallow all my pride, basically just knuckle down and just ignore everything that was coming at me, the negativity, the non-support, and I was basically, just do the paperwork and I'll do the rest myself. And I did it because I'm right here. But, I did it because in the beginning, the judge said that there was no realistic prospect for rehabilitation for me when I was a little girl, and they basically sentenced me to life and said they were throwing away the key. And I don't know, hopefully that, that judge is still alive and well and able to, hear me speaking and, know that, he was wrong. Because, how do you write somebody off when they're like a kid and they haven't even lived life yet? That's what gets me. How do you do that? Before I was born into this world, my life path was already set up into trauma and alcoholism and violence and all that kind of stuff. But anyways, I'm just talking away.
Sheri, don't apologize for speaking because everything you're saying is exactly what I hope people are hearing. And you've actually you don't know this, but because you haven't read the book, but you've basically hit every point in this book. Everything from the paperwork to what I'm calling carceral intimacy, when you're talking about getting pepper sprayed in the face and all the things the prison does to abuse closeness, right? And then everything you're talking about, how you go and find life in people so it's perfect. You just laid out exactly a map for people on what love looks like in this work, and starting with self-love for yourself and your culture and finding that, and healing with your family, and finding that return is beautiful. So I don't have anything else to say. I think Sheri said that. So, that was just the biggest description right there of what the book title actually is. It's a fancy title, but it just really means love and freedom. That's it. So, yeah.
Memorializing the lives of those in prison has both a present and a future urgency. To speak of and in through sites of state violence is to speak back against the state's will towards amnesia and its endless reincarnations of white supremacy and violence masquerading as reforms. Sheri, can you share with us why memorializing your experiences and those who you've met in prison has both a present and future urgency? You often speak of your practice of writing letters to your son so he can understand your life experiences and how they have shaped you. Recovering what is lost and erased. What does it mean to you to write in a way that might return your voice to you?
I write the letters because as not only am I serving a life sentence, since I came out of prison, like, my health has deteriorated like immensely. Like I lived with 2 very rare diseases, and it's so like I have this rare disease. When I got pregnant with my son, I had like a lot of stress because the fact that I even got pregnant, you know, made corrections pull my parole. They're like, oh well, you didn't ask us permission, you know, to have a baby. So I was like, well, okay, well, it's my body, but whatever, you know. They kept me for 6 months longer once because I got pregnant. They said, well, you have to ask permission, you know. So I was like, well, I didn't, and I'm pregnant, and it's my choice. So regardless of what you guys do to me, this is me, my baby's passed on. And the reason I write letters to Neville is because as a lifer, I had very, very harsh conditions upon coming in, and I still almost have all of them with the exception of having contact with people with a criminal record. I used to be what they considered a 10-minute case, which basically means that if I met anybody, including anybody, I had 10 minutes upon meeting somebody to find out if that person had a criminal record. Because if they had a criminal record, I was not allowed to have communication or contact with them. So I basically did not want to do this. You know, if I met people, and I just chose not to connect with people. It made me fearful of, like, who the heck, you know, wants to be, you know, questioned, you know, about your past, your history, are you a criminal? Like, who am I to do that to anybody just upon meeting them? I don't feel that I have that right, and I don't believe that, you know, it is a right that anybody should have put on anybody else. And also in that 10-minute case is if I was late, you know, to my parole meeting or an appointment with corrections or anything to do with my release, I was in breach. I was automatically in breach, you know. It was like, it was really, really hectic when I first got out. And so I still live with the fear every day that, you know, if I trip over the wrong pebble, you know, and I land on the wrong grass or I land on the wrong thing, that, you know, I'm going to be in breach and they can yank me. And being a life sentence with all the laws that changed over the past 6-7 years, that, you know, if I go back in, I might not come back out. And that's actually the reality. And that's one of the reasons that I write letters to my son Neville, who's 10 years old now, and I write to him all the time explaining about my situation, my parole, who our family is, who I am, the reasons that I choose the things that I do, is so that if I do end up either going away and for whatever reasons and not being able to get back out to him, that, you know, these letters will be compiled and given to him so he can have an understanding. Because like since Neville was born, I've talked to him, you know, since he was a baby. I've just talked to him, and the purpose of that was so that he would recognize my voice above all. And you know, when it came to me speaking, that he would stop and he would listen because he knows that it's my voice. So I think that it's important for him, if it's not from my own words. And, you know, there's a lot of things that I can't really explain to him now because he's only 10, and, you know, 10-year-olds shouldn't have to totally understand the whole weight of, you know, his mother's path. And the reason I write is because if anybody should know the very truth of who I am, it should be my son. Because since having him, I've considered that I've broken, like, the family cycle of alcoholism, of abuse, of violence, all this stuff, and he has no idea of what it is to grow up with an alcoholic, or to be beat, or to be hungry, or, you know, not to wake up with no food in the cupboard, and, you know, have to go to school hungry, and all that stuff that, you know, you spoke about before, that, you know, that you barely eat and stuff. So that was like my childhood, and everything I do, every step that I take is to ensure that my son never experiences the same thing that I went through, and that he doesn't grow up with the same intentions. Like, one of my biggest fears was him growing up to be a horrible alcoholic, but I realized, and with the people in support around me, they're like, well, why would he do that? They're like, he doesn't have that same upbringing. He didn't put him through that. So that's one of the reasons I do it, so that my life is never forgotten, and that because he grows up carrying my name, and my name is very well known to my crimes and to prison and to being a life round parole. So, I think that it's only fair that, he knows, and he can read, and he can have my words, and yeah, that's why I think it's important not to be forgotten and to know where one comes from.
It's so lovely hearing that from your side, because on the listening side, one of the things I was saying is Adrian was like, he was almost obsessive documenting sometimes in this book, like all you're doing is just documenting what people are saying to you like all the time, and it's just phone calls and you're just talking about these phone calls. And I was like, yeah, because I can't do anything, you're so powerless that sometimes all you can do is just be like, let me do justice to this person's story. If they've taken the time to call me, let me at least remember what they said, because that might be the only thing that I can do. Like, we can't get people out sometimes. Sometimes we do, right? Like, sometimes we do. But sometimes there's a call and something and you just have to write it out. Like, there's nothing you can do. And all I think you can do in that moment is say, at least I could listen to you and hear that. So to sort of hear you say that from the other side of, why you're writing these down, so they're documented, and that your life and that love and that whole journey can be understood by your child. It's, like trying to make language work, to try and do something. So yeah, it's, I don't want to talk after Sheri, like we just want to listen to Sheri. Next question.
So just to be mindful to have some time for the audience to ask questions, I'm going to ask one last one. Elle writes that abolitionist intimacies characterized by love, care, forgiveness, healing, faith, and uplift in relationships within and outside the prison are often practiced and sustained by women, mothers, girlfriends, support workers, and advocates. These relationships believe in the capacity of the person in prison for love, for return, for change. Sheri and Elle, could you share with us what drives you in the work you do, and how abolitionist intimacies have the power of transforming those who are inside?
I'll go first, because I want to go after you. No, yeah, kind of the whole point of the book is that against all this violence that we face and all the violence we're constantly documenting and experiencing is love, and it is in a very real way a book about love. There's some bits of theoretical, there's some poems and stuff, but the root going through everything is just all the relationships I've had with people and the love that we share and the organizing that's taking place with people. When you're picking up the phone, when people are inside organizing a strike or calling for somebody else, or we're packing boxes, or people are driving each other to visits. And it's women, like I say in the book, like 90%, you go in a visiting room in a women's prison, there's nobody visiting. And then you go in a men's prison, it's all women visiting. It's mothers, it's young women going, people are like going out and paying for like monitoring bracelets of like $600+ for like their boyfriends or partners. People are driving kids up 8 hours, getting on buses to go out into rural regions to bring their children up. And I wanted to honor that, that against all of this terrible stuff, like not only in prison, but on the streets, policing, like at our borders, all these violences that we're constantly going out and protesting or hearing about, that we have to be true to, we want to witness to, but alongside that is our own ability to love each other and our own ability to hear each other and listen to each other, and learn from each other in that way. And that's what I guess like the actual practice of abolition is to me. You did something beautiful on E-Fry Week, remember Lifers Week? And I don't know if it's still available or if they took it, like the conversation with your family, is that available? So there's a beautiful conversation that Sheri did with like your sisters and just your family, talking about what the impact of you going to prison was, and all of you coming together and just talking about your lives, which is so brave, that to put that out there, and like you're coming out here and I can see how hard, like you're telling these really awful things, and you're telling them to us for a reason. Like you're not doing it because it's fun, you're doing it because you want us to understand what your life was, where it came from, like why this happens. There's something there's a real bravery and courage every time that you have to get up and go to this incredibly traumatic place to bring us something, you know, and then to do that with your family in public. You know, most of us can't even have these conversations with our family, period, in private, and you're doing it for us, you know, to bring us something. And that's the kind of thing that, you know, I hope that's what, in the best parts of the book, I hope that's what you're hearing, is like when you, like these phone calls and this work together, and particularly this woman's work of, you know, the very thing that is seen as really feminized and not the real work and not the real leadership, which is nurturing and caring and like not always standing up at the front, like the people that are just making food, the people who are calling and saying, oh, you know, my son called and said, you don't know how to send a box, so I'm going to call you and tell you how to do it, or don't forget hand sanitizer, darling, like the phones are dirty, like, oh, you didn't bring any, I have some in my purse, you know. Oh, I have $1 for the lockers, don't worry about it, you know, like people that often have nothing are doing so much that is fighting this beast that eats us every day. And, you know, for me, like that's what this is, and that's what I'm trying to talk about, and probably failing at myself in all kinds of ways. But Sheri, you can finish this up.
Thank you, Elle. You know, when I went away, it was it was traumatic for everybody, including the victim's family. Everything that was involved is why I went to prison at a very young age, and where I ended up with a life sentence. That conversation that I had with my sisters during Friday was actually the very first conversation that I got the opportunity to have with my sisters about what happened, like how it affected them when I went away and stuff like that. It was hard, but I was extremely happy that they were willing to do that with me, because while I was inside, and even though I felt forgotten and I felt, you know, away and I was alone pretty much my whole life. One thing I can say is that since I've gotten out, and even while I was in, I did get letters and drawings and pictures of all my nieces and nephews, and when I got out in 2010, I finally made it out. I was barred from going back to Winnipeg. I was barred from going back home. I wasn't allowed, so I was forced to just be out here by myself and to, you know, try and make things work. And, you know, being as stubborn as I am and as willful as I am, I was like, you know what, I can do this. I was like, F the system, you know, F you guys for blocking me from going home. I was like, and while I was in prison, it wasn't very easy to have communication, because to make long distance calls from prison is like extremely expensive. You know, we make like less than $5 a day. Stuff like that, $5 something, I think it's a day's, you know, it's not a lot, you know, you get these pay grades, and I was pretty much always like at the very lowest, because, I don't know, I was defiant, and I was indigenous, and, you know, because, you know, one of the things I was very grateful for during all of that was that when I got out, every single niece and nephew that I've never met that was born while I was inside, they knew everything about me. You know, they were sending me Facebook requests on Messenger, video calls, and they're just like, oh, Auntie Sheri, yeah, we know all of this and this and this. So, you know, my family, even though I didn't know, they kept me alive through just talking about me and telling their kids about me, and, you know, never forgetting me. Like, while I was on the other side, and it took me a long time to realize that that was happening. And when I realized that was happening, that's, you know, one of the reasons I talk. Like, when I talk, I don't talk about other people. You know, I'll bring other stories of people that have passed away inside, things that I've experienced with them. But one of the things I've never done in my life is talk about other people. It's like, unless, you know, it's interesting because through my sentence, I have also had like a lot of brothers and a lot of men in the system write to me, because a lot of my older brothers and uncles and cousins, they were all incarcerated. They were all incarcerated, like across Canada. So, you know, through them, I'd have their friends write to me and keep me company during my sentence, give me advice. All these people would give me advice on how to do my time, the proper ways to do it, how to make sure that, you know, corrections didn't get one over me on request. Write everything down. They're like, read. They're like, here, you gotta read this commissioner directive, read the CCRAs, CCRAs, CCRRs. They're like, do this, do this, do this. So it's like I have like all of this like love and support from others in the system. Why? Because, you know, I guess, you know, my one older brother was like, he did like something like over 26 years in the pen for multiple different things, and a lot of my family was inside, so like they built friendships and brotherhoods, and you know, and then those people became my brothers, and they would write to me and help me out and give me advice, and those are things that, you know, I'll always carry with me, and that's what actually got me through. If it wasn't for them telling me to read and to document everything, you know, I probably would have got lost. I probably would have been, you know, I don't know what I probably would have been. I'm just really grateful that, you know, people were there and that I was never forgotten, and that when I did get out, kids and stuff that I've never met, you know, talk to me and hug me and see me when they talk to me, and it's just like, it's almost like there was never no distance, there was never no not being there. It was like, that's why I do what I do, and that's what carries me every single day, is that love. You know, it's all we ever, as humans, are indigenous creatures, whatever you want to call us. It's, we want love, and that's it. That's what I strive for. All that I was in, I used to find myself in the most frustrating situations in the institutions, and being the reputation that I had, it was like a reputation where to come against me was for me to come against you. And there's many times where I had to take a walk, and I'd go sit in a field or a corner or a blind spot by myself, and I would cry. I'd cry so hard, because I was like, I didn't know myself by not reacting and not giving in and not fighting back. You know, it was like hard, and I don't like to admit that because I'm stronger than that. But yeah, love. That's what it comes down to.
Sheri, that's so beautiful. And where's Sheri's book? Like, we just want Sheri's book. Because, no, I mean, you said, you know, you just talk about your own story. I mean, you have all of us just hanging off your words, and that is it's a gift. It's a beautiful thing. Thank you so much for joining today. Just everything. I'm so moved by you being here and your courage, and I love it. Thank you. I love you. Thank you.
So we're gonna open up for questions. I don't know if there's any on Zoom, YouTube, not yet. If there's any in the audience.
If you're leaving and you want me to sign your book, I can do it while we sit here. You know, I'm just saying. I can multitask. If you bought a book and you want me to sign it, you gotta go. Just bring it to me while we're here. How did the journey start? Well, in the first chapter of my book. I actually say it started with poetry. I read Ballad of Reading Gaol by Oscar Wilde when I was 13, and that really spoke to me. I really understood the injustice. And at that age, my mind just opened, so Ballad of Reading Gaol is a poem by Oscar Wilde about when he was doing time. He was convicted of sodomy, right, under these anti-gay laws in England at the time, which still exist in like 72 countries around the world. And he writes this really beautiful poem about, and so one of the lines is like, I know not whether laws be right or whether laws be wrong. All that we know that lie in jail is that the wall is strong, and that each day lasts like a year whose days are long. And those just really spoke to me at that age. I just understood it. And so that was really
when I sort of understood that these things still existed and that it was wrong, and then I kind of went from there. But I guess in my adult life, again through poetry, really, I was doing poems, and at the time we were like pre-woke, so you remember this, you know, like I was doing poems about like policing and prisons and stuff like that, and everybody hated me. Like they would like boo me off the stage. Rocky Jones would be in the back, like black activist in Halifax, just like pumping his fist, and everybody else was like, get her off the stage, like why is she here? But the people that, and this goes back to like who loves you, you know, the people that would want to hear me was like people that were experiencing that, and their mothers would come up, or like people that, can you come to the shelter and do that, because people relate. So it was really, you know, as someone who hasn't been in prison, hasn't been criminalized in that way, it was people saying like, I'm gifting you this story and I want you to speak it, or I want you to know it, or I want to bring it to you. And that's really the origins of this book, like that listening and coming through poetry, and then going through that into prisons, and then that turning into other relationships. But it actually started with words.
Thank you.
All right, there's no other questions. So, we need Marlihan back, so we'll just, Marlihan's back.
Sorry, I had to pee. No more questions? Last call, no questions on YouTube? What time is it?
It's like 4:04.
Okay, well then, it's good. So we're gonna close. I would like to thank once again Sheri. Thank you, Elle, for trusting me to have this conversation. I'm very humbled and grateful. And so we're gonna have a table in the back for signing. You can get your book. I don't know if the books were brought, or if not, they're next door. Gabby, are they gonna be here or next? Oh yeah, they're here. So you can grab a book and get your book signed. So thanks once again to Fernwood Publishing. Thanks to Deanna. Thanks to Ricardo, if he's still here. And thank you all of you for coming out today and participating in this conversation.
Thank you for all the work put together in this group. Thank you to all of you.
Oh, and I gotta thank my editor, Fazila Jiwa. She really put the book together, so Fazila's the best. And Deanna and Ricardo and everyone. Okay, goodbye.